Ethan was a loving father and devoted husband, but everything fell apart when he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. As he struggled to come to terms with his illness, the unimaginable happened. His wife and teenage daughter abandoned him, leaving him to face his darkest days alone. For months, he endured the pain of their betrayal, questioning what he had done to deserve such heartbreak. Just as he began to accept his lonely fate, a knock at the door changed everything. His wife and daughter returned, but why? Were they seeking forgiveness, or was there more to their sudden reappearance? This emotional story of betrayal, love, and redemption will leave you questioning the power of family and forgiveness. The hospital room was quiet, except for the steady hum of the machines, monitoring Ethan's failing body. He sat by the window, his frail frame silhouetted against the afternoon light. Terminal cancer had stolen his once strong physique and drained his energy, but not his will to live, at least, not entirely. What broke him wasn't the disease, but the betrayal of the people he had loved most in the world. Months ago, when the diagnosis became undeniable, Ethan's wife, Linda, and their teenage daughter, Chloe, had walked out of his life without warning. No explanation, no goodbye. Just an empty house where laughter and warmth had once lived. Ethan had replayed that moment over and over. He remembered the day Linda stood in the doorway, suitcase in hand, refusing to meet his gaze. Chloe had followed, clutching her backpack, her eyes filled with confusion and anger. Ethan had begged, pleaded even, for them to stay, but Linda's words were as cold as they were final. "We can't do this, Ethan. I can't watch you waste away. It's too much." They left him to face his illness alone, and for months the house had been silent. Friends and neighbors tried to help, bringing meals or offering to drive him to appointments, but it wasn't the same. The absence of his family was a constant ache, more painful than the disease ravaging his body. Nights were the hardest. Ethan would sit in Chloe's empty room, staring at the photos of their happier days, a family vacation at the beach, Chloe's birthday parties, lazy Sundays spent watching movies. Those memories felt like they belonged to another lifetime. Ethan's condition worsened as the weeks turned into months. The doctors were candid. He didn't have much time left. He started to prepare for the inevitable, writing letters to Chloe and Linda, trying to express the love he still felt despite their betrayal. He wasn't sure if they'd ever read them, but it was the only way he could say goodbye. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the room in shades of orange and pink, Ethan heard a knock at the door. Startled, he rarely had visitors. He slowly made his way to answer it. Standing on the porch were Linda and Chloe, their faces etched with guilt and hesitation. For a moment, Ethan thought he was hallucinating, but the awkward silence confirmed they were real. "What are you doing here?" Ethan's voice was hoarse, a mixture of disbelief and anger. Linda stepped forward, her eyes glistening with tears. "Ethan, we're so sorry. We made a mistake." Chloe stood behind her mother, fidgeting nervously. "Dad, I missed you," she whispered, her voice cracking. Ethan stared at them, his emotions a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and the faintest flicker of hope. He wanted to slam the door in their faces, to scream at them for leaving when he needed them most. But another part of him, the part that had spent countless nights wishing for their return, hesitated. "You missed me?" Ethan's voice broke as he addressed Chloe. "You both walked away without a word. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Linda wiped a tear from her cheek. "I was scared, Ethan. I didn't know how to handle it. Watching you suffer, I thought leaving would make it easier. But I was wrong. I've regretted it every single day." Chloe stepped forward, her hands trembling. "Mom told me it was for the best, but I didn't understand. I was so mad at her. I didn't know how to come back." Ethan shook his head, overwhelmed. "You don't just get to walk back in here and pretend everything's okay. Do you know how many nights I spent alone, wondering what I did to deserve this?" "We're not pretending," Linda said softly. We're here because we want to make things right. If there's still time, if you'll let us." Ethan's legs felt weak, and he leaned against the doorframe for support. "I don't know if I can forgive you." "Not yet." Linda nodded. "I understand. But can we at least try? Please, Ethan." The sincerity in her voice gave him pause. Against his better judgment, he stepped aside, allowing them to enter. The house was just as they had left it, though the air felt heavier, weighed down by months of loneliness and despair. Chloe wandered into the living room, her eyes landing on the family photos that still adorn the shelves. She picked up one of her favorite pictures, a snapshot of Ethan, holding her on his shoulders at the county fair. "You kept all of these?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course I did," Ethan replied, his tone softer now. "You're my family. I couldn't just erase you, even if you erased me." The evening was filled with cautious conversation. Linda explained how guilt had eaten away at her every day since they left, how she realized that running away didn't make the pain any easier to bear. Chloe shared how much she missed her dad, how she wished she had stood up to her mother and stayed. Ethan listened, his heart torn between the joy of having them back and the lingering sting of their betrayal. Over the next few weeks, Linda and Chloe became fixtures in Ethan's life once more. They accompanied him to doctor's appointments, cooked meals, and spent time together as a family. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of tension and unresolved hurt, but slowly, they began to rebuild what had been broken. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, the warm glow of the chandelier casting a soft light over their faces, Ethan looked at his wife and daughter with tears welling in his tired eyes. "I don't know how much time I have left," he began, his voice steady but trembling with raw emotion. "But I'm glad you're here now. Every day, I prayed for this moment, even when I thought it would never come. I just wish it hadn't taken something this devastating for us to find our way back to each other. I've missed you both more than words can ever express." His words lingered in the air, heavy with love and regret, as Linda and Chloe reached for his hands, their silent promise to stay by his side, unspoken but deeply felt. Chloe reached across the table, taking his hand. "We're here, Dad. We're not going anywhere." For the first time in months, Ethan felt a sense of peace. Though his body was failing, his heart was full. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew he wouldn't have to face it alone. In the end, forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about choosing love despite the pain. And for Ethan, that choice made all the difference.